YouTube fans, here again. I remember talking about the box set of this. I did originally get the DVD. No, I've got the box set. That is the original, the classic. Crocodile Dundee. And I might keep it like this. I've always been a big fan of Paul Holden. I'm having a runny nose. Always been a big fan of Paul Holden. I remember the days of the Paul Holden show. I remember when he did the Dinish adverts. And also, if I remember right, he did Fodder. What was that, as we all know, was an Australian drink. And I also remember when he did the cigarette adverts, which nowadays you would not get away with, you know, transfer and all that. Different era, different time. His career was sort of dying down after he did the Paul Holden show. He did a lot of, like I say, the Fodder adverts. He did Foster. He did a lot of Foster adverts. He did smoking adverts and so on. But it was only in 1986 he had this big break with this film, which is sort of like a comedy, sort of like an adventure, like a love story. I say more of a comedy story. And this was a big hit. This was a damn good big hit. So it pisses me off. And I'll say, right, it pisses me off. This has no fucking features. All it has, if you can see it here, is a fucking trailer. Wow, a theatre trailer. I could fucking just go on YouTube, type in Crocodile Dundee, original theatrical trailer, and probably see it. Wow. Because this preserves a lot more special features. It preserves an interview with Paul Holden, it preserves an interview of the director, and so on. You know what I mean? They're probably making back in the day. And it pisses me off. Because this was in 1986. This was a big hit, and what are they for films? You know, you had Top Gun, you had Aliens, you had Dave Jordan Birds, The Fly, the list goes on. But this was a big hit, dosing film at our mate Paul Holden. Starts off, you've got a reporter who would later be Paul Holden's wife, and she hears about this guy who lives on the land, survived a crocodile, lost his leg, which you know is Mickey Mouse, and so on. And she says they call him the Crocodile Man, who would later be called Crocodile Dundee. So she decides to go down under and see our mate Mick Mundy. And I always love the music in this. I thought it Benson sort of feel, a bit like in Down the Dones, but its own sort of theme. It goes duh, 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 and I'm not going to do the rest because I'll kill it. But I always like that. I always like the fact that when they made the sequel 2 years later, they was faithful to keep the same theme tune to our mate Paul Holden. So she goes to us to meet our mate in the pub, the local pub. He's got a little talkie there. She finds out that most of the story about him using a leg and all this was bullshit. But she gets to like him. You know what I mean? She gets to like him. And in all fairness, Paul Holden was pushing 50 when he did this. And I admit he looked pretty good for that era. So he comes in with his crocodile, meets his mates who are all losses, you know, Dump the Dog and all the others. He's like, you've probably seen him in a lot of Aussie soaps and all, whether it be old episodes of Sons and Daughters, Piss and Cell Buckets. The list goes on, because let's be honest, a lot of the Aussie actors do appear in soaps, whether it be Neighbours, Home and Away, this goes on. But she meets him, and she meets some Aborigines. And like I say, I always love the scene in it. I love the scene in it where he knocks his blow out and he goes, I mean, I've tried that. It doesn't fucking work. But with Crocodile Dundee, it does. He has his mate go Mick. And there's a good bit in it where his trucks are trying to attack the reporter. And Crocodile D runs out, saves the day. And I always love the scene later on where she says, I thought that duck was going to eat me. And he says, well, I wouldn't put it past it. So it does have a lot of humour in it, but again, in levity, it's not every 2 minutes, all that silly sort of humour. It's humour what Paul Holden was good at. And I thought he was brilliant in this. He was bloody brilliant in this. So they moved to New York. She asked us, does he want to go to New York? But in all fairness, we all know that Paul Holden, he's Australian, and going to New York is a different story. So it's like a funny bit in it is, you know what I mean, he's hitchhiking and everything's big. The only issue with Crocodile Dundee though is there's a scene where you've got a pimp and he's having a go with his prostitute and he says a line are you going to pay for it? Are you going to? And then you could hear that the voice was dubbed over. So I felt at the time it was down a mild the rating. So you could actually tell there was a bit of bad language there. And they sort of like, you know, dubbed it out, which is so hilarious. Let alone it does have bad language in it. But I love to see where Holden looks at him, he goes bung and swats him and knocks him out. There's some funny bits in it. There's a bit in it where you see this woman and someone says, "Did you know that's a feather?" And he chucks it down there to find it's a feather. I was like the song in it, there's a bit where they've got a song and you hear a song there. You do, you the only son, you don't know it's a sad way, it's a nice way, so give it up. I always remember that song in the film. It brought a lot of memories to me. So you've got his love of his life. If I find a picture there. And like I said, there's a bit there, I say, where it's like, you got one guy in it and you think you've seen him before. Think of the original Die Hard. But it's sort of a love story because he falls for her in the film, but she's going to get engaged. And you can definitely go, there's a love scene between them, right? There's a bit where he's going to get his head kicked in by the pimp. But lucky enough, the dive vessels, it's funny enough, does have bad language in that scene. I always find funny that halfway through it, they sort of mubbed out the language. So you can definitely go the. But nevertheless, he gets the guy from Die Hard, I like to call him. You might remember him, know that paid. Bruce Willis is his mate. He saves the day because he used to be an Aussie. And then he finds out the love of his life. He's going to move, but then he finds she changes that to see him. But I always remember the scene, they're jumping on people's heads and he's jumping over her and says, "Hey, she said she loves you." She what? She loves you. And they're jumping over, happy ending. Before all that, let's forget the scene where they're going to get mugs and the guy's got that knife. And you might have heard it, it's been used in a lot of other films, so they use the same thing. And that guy's got the fake knife, he's going to mug Crocodile Dundee and his woman, well, soon to be his woman, and says, "Crocodile Dundee, he's got a knife." And you know, everyone remembers it. That's not a knife. That's a knife. I love the scene. I mean, I love it. But I love it as a happy ending. He gets the love of his life at the end. You get an epic bit of music, you know. Do, 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 do. Do 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 do. I'm not going to do the rest. But I like the fact it's in its original widescreen format. It's been beautifully transferred, remastered. Again, the only issue is you only get a couple of subtitles. You get it in different languages. Ooh, and you get an original trailer. This one here in 1986 was a big hit film. It was so big that 2 years later they made a sequel. And it's like I say, Holden in this, he was making it big. It made big money, and it was a big success of that there. It was a big jousting hit comedy of that there. And I love Crocodile Dundee. I still love it today. I watch this film whenever I'm bored and there's a load of shit on TV. Dundee, this gets on, it's been on TV a lot, but I love it. And what's so heartbreaking is they don't ever make films like this anymore. They do not make films like Crocodile Dundee anymore, and it's bloody heartbreaking. In my eyes, it's heartbreaking. Love this film, still love it today. I love the fact that it was faithful and the original art cover of the film, and there's a lot of other art covers and all to market it. But I always love that art cover, it's just epic, it's big, it's huge. You got, you know, our mate Paul Holden, and he's lifting them buildings up, and you can see his Aussie face, and I love it. And I love the film that much, and it's a classic. A 10-star rating. That's not a knife. That's one. Into then, I'll see you later for some more movies and some more movie reviews. See you later.